I remember the exact moment the floor dropped out from under my life. It was a Thursday evening in late October, the kind of crisp autumn night where the air carries the faint scent of wood smoke from neighbors' fireplaces. I was standing in our kitchen, the one we'd remodeled 2 years ago, with those warm oak cabinets she picked out because they felt like home. The overhead lights cast a soft yellow glow on the granite countertop, still scattered with the crumbs from the kids' after-school snacks. My name is Alex Thompson. I'm 42, a mid-level project manager at a logistics firm downtown. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years. We met in college, built a life together in this quiet suburban neighborhood outside Chicago. 2 kids, Emily, 10, and Jacob, 8, a golden retriever named Max who shed everywhere, and the kind of comfortable routine that once felt like stability. That night, Sarah had left for what she called a low-key girls' night at her friend Lisa's place. She hugged me tightly at the door, her familiar lavender shampoo filling my senses, and said with that warm, reassuring smile, "Don't wait up if I'm late, but I'll try to be home by 11. Love you." Her lips brushed my cheek, soft and quick. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, feeling that small, familiar contentment. Around 1:30 a.m., I jolted awake on the couch, the TV still murmuring some late-night documentary. Max was snoring at my feet. Sarah wasn't home. Her phone went straight to voicemail. A knot tightened in my stomach, but I told myself traffic, or maybe they'd had one too many drinks. I texted her, "Everything okay?" Worried. No reply. At 3:17 a.m., her car finally pulled into the driveway. I met her at the door. She looked flushed, her makeup slightly smudged, hair a bit messier than when she left. The chill night air clung to her coat, mixed with something else, cigarette smoke? She never smoked. "God, Alex, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice a little too bright, eyes avoiding mine for a split second. "Lisa's place got crazy with old friends showing up. Phone died. I didn't want to wake you." She kissed me again, but it felt mechanical. As she slipped past me toward the stairs, I noticed a faint mark on her neck, just above her collarbone, reddened skin, like a hickey hastily covered with makeup. Or was it just the cold? My mind raced to dismiss it. She was tired. We were both tired. But as I lay in bed beside her later, listening to her even breathing, a quiet voice in my head whispered that something had shifted. The next morning, while making coffee, I glanced at her phone charging on the counter. A notification flashed briefly before the screen dimmed, a message from an unsaved number. "Last night was incredible. When can we do it again?" My heart stuttered. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. That was the beginning of the end. Or maybe the moment I finally saw what had been cracking beneath the surface for months. The initial hook moment illustrates how small, seemingly innocuous behaviors accumulate into seismic relational fractures. Sarah's late return, the subtle inconsistencies in her appearance and scent, and the fleeting phone notification didn't explode the marriage in isolation. They represented the endpoint of gradual emotional drift. Alex's immediate internal rationalizations, attributing the hickey-like mark to cold weather or fatigue, demonstrate early denial as a protective mechanism, buying time against the discomfort of uncertainty. This escalation is psychologically realistic. Repeated micro-deceptions erode trust incrementally, creating a feedback loop where the betrayed partner's hypervigilance grows alongside the cheater's compartmentalization. The ordinary domestic setting, kitchen routines, children's snacks, familiar routines, heightens the contrast, making the betrayal feel invasive and personal. Alex's hesitation to confront immediately stems from dependency needs and fear of impending family stability, a common response that delays but intensifies the eventual confrontation. These early actions set a chain reaction. One unexplained absence invites suspicion, which breeds selective attention to future anomalies, ultimately leading to obsessive rumination and the unraveling of shared reality. The section captures the slow burn of betrayal trauma, where ordinary life becomes the backdrop for impending psychological shock. Life resumed its familiar rhythm in the days that followed, but with faint static underneath. Mornings were the same. The smell of fresh coffee brewing in our reliable old machine, sunlight slanting through the blinds onto the breakfast table where Emily chattered about school projects and Jacob begged for extra cereal. Sarah would bustle around in her robe, hair still damp from the shower, kissing the kids' heads, and giving me a quick peck before heading to her part-time job at the local community center. She'd been there for years, organizing events and helping with adult education classes. It's fulfilling, she'd say. Lately, though, she seemed more energized by it, coming home with stories about new colleagues or late planning sessions. One evening, as I loaded the dishwasher, the clink of plates echoing in the warm kitchen, she mentioned a team-building workshop coming up on a Friday night. It might run late, she added casually, scrolling her phone with her back to me. Her shoulders were slightly tense, a micro-adjustment I might have missed before. Intimacy had cooled too. Not dramatically, just less spontaneous touches, fewer nights where we'd linger in bed talking about nothing. When we did make love, it felt distracted, her responses polite but distant, eyes sometimes flicking toward the window as if her mind was elsewhere. Afterward, she'd fall asleep quickly, leaving me staring at the ceiling, the sheets cool against my skin, wondering when we'd last felt truly connected. There were red herrings everywhere. Once, I found a receipt in her coat pocket for an expensive bottle of wine and 2 glasses at a downtown bistro. When I asked, she laughed lightly, the sound a touch too forced. "Oh, that?" Lisa and I grabbed lunch after a meeting. You know how she is with her treat-yourself moments. Her fingers twisted her wedding ring absent-mindedly as she spoke. I wanted to believe her. The ring was still there, after all. Another time, Jacob innocently mentioned, "Mom was talking on the phone in the car really quietly yesterday when she picked me up. She said not now and hung up fast." Sarah brushed it off at dinner. "Just a telemarketer, honey. They never stop." But her smile didn't reach her eyes, and she changed the subject to Emily's soccer game. I started noticing her routes home varied. She'd mention traffic on the usual highway but take surface streets to avoid construction. Her phone stayed face down more often. Password changed because of some spam calls. Small things. I told myself I was being paranoid, projecting my own work stress onto her. We had a good life. Mortgage almost manageable, kids thriving, weekends at the park with Max tugging on his leash, leaves crunching underfoot in the cool fall air. Yet, at night, after the house quieted and the only sounds were the furnace humming and distant traffic, doubts crept in like shadows lengthening across the bedroom walls. I loved her. Or at least, I loved the version of us I'd built in my mind. But the cracks were there, widening with every unexplained late night and evasive glance. One Saturday, while Sarah was running errands, I sat in the living room with the kids watching a movie. Emily looked up during a quiet scene. "Dad, why does Mom smell like different perfume sometimes?" The question hung in the air, innocent and piercing. I forced a smile, the room suddenly feeling colder despite the heater running. That weekend ended with another girls' night. This time, I checked her location share. We'd enabled it years ago for safety. It pinged at a bar downtown, not Lisa's house. When I called, she answered breathlessly, music thumping in the background. "Hey babe, signal's bad, love you." Click. I sat in the dark kitchen that night, the clock ticking loudly on the wall, coffee gone cold in my mug, wondering how many more ordinary days I could endure before the signs became impossible to ignore. Here of building ordinary life against emerging trouble, Alex's internal world reveals deep identity conflict and emotional substitution. As the betrayed husband, he grapples with the tension between his role as stable provider and father versus the growing fear of being inadequate or replaceable. His rationalizations serve as emotional substitution, attributing changes in Sarah's behavior to external stressors rather than personal rejection, to preserve a coherent self-narrative and family unit. Sarah's motivations appear rooted in unmet needs for excitement or validation, possibly stemming from the routine of suburban motherhood and part-time work, leading her to compartmentalize her affair while maintaining the facade of devoted wife. This creates internal conflict for her as well, the guilt visible in micro-gestures, twisting her ring, forced laughter, clashes with the thrill of secrecy. The children's innocent observations act as catalysts, heightening Alex's psychological pressure without direct confrontation, forcing him to confront the gap between his expectations of marital security and the emerging reality of emotional distance. Defense mechanisms like minimization, small things, protect against immediate pain but accumulate cognitive dissonance. The red herrings, receipts explained away, varying routes, mislead Alex into self-doubt, a common pattern where the betrayed questions their own perceptions before evidence forces acknowledgement. This part underscores how betrayal erodes from within through quiet erosion of intimacy and trust, with sensory domestic details amplifying the protagonist's growing alienation in his own home. Suspicion didn't arrive like a storm. It seeped in like dampness through old walls, slow and persistent. Workdays blurred, endless meetings about supply chains, the hum of fluorescent lights in my office, the taste of stale office coffee. But my mind kept drifting back to Sarah. I'd catch myself replaying conversations, analyzing her tone, the way her eyes darted when I asked simple questions about her day. One afternoon, I came home early after a canceled client meeting. The house was quiet, sunlight pooling on the hardwood floors through half-drawn curtains. Sarah's car was in the driveway, but she wasn't downstairs. I heard her voice from our bedroom, low and urgent on the phone. "Can't keep doing this so close to home. It's risky." A pause. "I know. Me too." The call ended abruptly as I climbed the stairs. She emerged from the bedroom, startled, phone clutched tightly. "Alex, you're home early." Her cheeks were flushed, pulse visible at her throat. "Just catching up with a coworker about an event." The explanation came too quickly, her posture rigid. I nodded, but the air between us felt thick, charged with unsaid words. That night, dinner was filled with the clatter of forks and the kids' chatter, but Sarah's laughter rang hollow, her gaze fixed on her plate more than usual. Financial clues surfaced subtly. Our joint account showed small, frequent ATM withdrawals in areas she didn't usually frequent, near a hotel district downtown. When I mentioned it casually over breakfast, the scent of toast and eggs filling the kitchen, she shrugged. "Cash for parking or little things. You know how cards get declined sometimes." Her fingers tapped the table rhythmically, a new nervous habit. A secondary thread wove in. My brother-in-law, Mark, Sarah's younger brother, had been staying with us intermittently while sorting out his own marriage troubles. He and Sarah shared late-night talks on the porch, voices low, the glow of his cigarette illuminating their faces in the cool evening air. Once, I overheard him say, "You deserve to feel alive again, sis." Was he covering for her, or just being a supportive sibling? It planted seeds of doubt about loyalties. Then there was the old college friend Sarah reconnected with via social media. She'd show me innocuous posts, group photos from a reunion. But one night, while she showered, her laptop screen hadn't locked fully. A chat window was open, flirty messages with someone named Ryan, talking about that night at the party and inside jokes that referenced locations matching her unexplained absences. Ryan's profile photo showed a fit man in his 40s, smiling confidently. I closed the laptop quickly, heart pounding, the steam from the bathroom carrying the scent of her body wash. I began small investigations, hating myself for it, checking the car's mileage against her stories, noting the times her phone died. One red herring nearly derailed me. I found a hotel key card in her purse, but she explained it away as leftover from a work conference months ago, producing old emails to prove it. Relief flooded me temporarily, only for new doubts to replace it. The pressure tightened with family dynamics. Emily started having nightmares, waking up crying about mom leaving. Jacob became clingier, sensing the tension in raised voices or prolonged silences. At a neighborhood barbecue, friends commented on how glowy Sarah looked lately. New haircut, fitted clothes, gym visits. Marriage goals, one neighbor joked. I smiled through gritted teeth, the smoke from the grill stinging my eyes. One evening, after another late return, Sarah slipped into bed. In the darkness, her breathing uneven, she reached for my hand. "Alex, is everything okay with us?" Her voice was soft, vulnerable. For a moment, I wanted to confess my fears, to bridge the growing chasm. But I pulled away gently. "Yeah, just tired." The lie tasted bitter. Suspicion had become a constant companion, coloring every interaction with the chill of uncertainty. Growing suspicion highlights cognitive biases at play, particularly confirmation bias and self-deception. Alex selectively attends to anomalies, phone calls, withdrawals, chats, while discounting Sarah's explanations, yet still oscillates back to denial when a red herring, the old hotel key card, offers temporary relief. This back and forth reflects the mind's effort to protect the existing worldview of a stable marriage, distorting reality through motivated reasoning. It's work stress, or I'm overthinking. Sarah employs her own self-justifying narratives, framing her actions as seeking feeling alive, possibly emotional needs unmet in routine domesticity, which allows her to maintain the wife/mother identity alongside the affair. The involvement of Mark introduces ambiguity. Is he enabling or innocently advising, exploiting Alex's bias toward family loyalty and complicating his perception? Children's behavioral changes serve as external mirrors, forcing Alex to confront how the secrecy ripples outward, amplifying his guilt and anxiety. The section shows how biases accumulate. Each explained clue reinforces false security, only for new evidence to shatter it, creating emotional whiplash. This mirrors real psychological responses to betrayal, where the betrayed constructs competing realities until evidence becomes overwhelming. Subtle body language, flushed cheeks, tapping fingers, and environmental cues reinforce the growing disconnect between words and actions, deepening interpersonal distrust. The hunt for proof consumed me in quiet, obsessive ways. I wasn't proud of it. The late nights scrolling through old photos on her social media, cross-referencing dates with calendar entries, the knot in my stomach as I waited for the kids to sleep. The house felt different now. Warmer lights seemed harsher. Familiar objects like the coffee mug she favored carried new weight. I installed a discreet tracking app on her phone during a moment she left it unattended, guilt gnawing at me, but desperation winning. It revealed patterns: detours to a residential area on the north side, stops at coffee shops at odd hours. One afternoon, following at a distance in my car, the autumn leaves swirling in the wind, I watched her meet a man outside a nondescript cafe. They embraced briefly, too familiarly, before disappearing inside. Ryan. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened, the heater blowing lukewarm air against my face. But red herrings persisted. Another meeting location matched a legitimate work event when I checked her emailed agenda. Was the app glitching? Or was I seeing connections where none existed? Financial records showed no large withdrawals, but small cash patterns continued. Sarah's mood swung, affectionate one day, irritable the next, blaming hormones or work pressure. A secondary twist emerged involving finances. While reviewing bills, I discovered Sarah had quietly redirected some savings into a separate account for the kids' college. Or so she claimed when confronted gently. Her explanation felt rehearsed, eyes not quite meeting mine across the dining table, the smell of roasted chicken lingering. Was it truly for the kids, or seed money for a new life? Mark's presence added layers. He'd borrowed small amounts from us recently, claiming job-hunting stress, but his protectiveness towards Sarah felt heavier now. One breakthrough came accidentally. Emily found Sarah's second phone, an old model, in the glove compartment while looking for a charger. "Mom, what's this?" The device was password protected, but a quick search online revealed common bypasses. Inside were deleted messages, restored partially, explicit exchanges with Ryan, plans for the party that wasn't Lisa's, references to hotel stays. Photos. The images burned into my mind. Sarah laughing in dim lighting, his hand on her waist. Confrontation loomed, but I held back, gathering more. I spoke to a trusted friend, not revealing everything, testing reactions. Doubts about my own role surfaced. Had I been emotionally absent with long work hours? A hidden truth of my own, a brief emotional flirtation years ago during a rough patch, made me question my moral ground, introducing ambiguity. The pressure peaked during a family movie night. Jacob fell asleep on the couch, the TV's blue light flickering. Sarah's phone buzzed on the armrest. A preview message: "Miss you already. Next time, no rushing out." She snatched it away, but the damage was done. Her face paled in the dim light. I couldn't sleep that night. The wind rattled the windows. Max whimpered in his sleep. Proof was mounting, yet part of me still hoped for an innocent explanation, a misunderstanding that would let us rewind. The web of secrets was tightening, and I sensed the threads were about to snap. Gathering proof reveals classic defense mechanisms in both characters. Alex employs intellectualization, methodical tracking, cross-referencing, and reaction formation, guilt over spying while continuing, to manage overwhelming anxiety and betrayal trauma. His temporary relief from red herrings shows rationalization, delaying the full emotional impact. The moral ambiguity from his own past flirtation introduces projection and self-doubt, complicating his sense of righteousness. Sarah likely uses denial and compartmentalization, maintaining dual lives by segmenting her affair from family responsibilities, with irritability as displaced guilt or resentment toward the constraints of her primary role. Mark's involvement suggests possible enabling as a loyalty conflict or familial defense mechanism. The section demonstrates how these mechanisms delay but intensify the breaking point. Small behaviors, mood swings, phone guarding, accumulate evidence while the psyche resists integration. Sensory details and family routines underscore the invasion of betrayal into safe spaces, heightening psychological realism. Children's presence raises stakes, triggering protective instincts that clash with the urge to expose truth. Ultimately, defenses crumble under repeated contradictions between words and actions, paving the way for confrontation. The confrontation happened on a rainy Sunday afternoon. The kids were at a birthday party, the house unusually still except for the steady patter of rain against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. I'd printed screenshots, saved locations, the restored messages, undeniable now. They lay on the kitchen table like evidence in a trial, the papers slightly damp from my sweaty palms. Sarah walked in from the garage, shaking rain from her coat, the scent of wet leaves following her. She froze when she saw the papers. "Alex, what is this?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "It's the truth I've been piecing together for weeks. Ryan, the parties, the lies about where you were. How long, Sarah?" She sank into a chair, color draining from her face. Silence stretched, broken only by the clock and rain. Tears welled, but she wiped them angrily. "It started 6 months ago. It was just supposed to be fun, attention. Things felt routine here. I never meant for it to go this far. I love you, the kids. This doesn't change that. Doesn't change that." My laugh was bitter, chest tight. I described the nights I lay awake, the kids sensing tension, the erosion of everything. She defended at first, accusing me of paranoia, bringing up my long hours, even hinting at my past emotional distance. Voices rose, words sharp as the lightning outside. "You invaded my privacy," she cried. "Because you destroyed our trust." I shot back. The argument peeled back layers. Her feeling unseen in the daily grind of motherhood and work, my fear of vulnerability after years of providing. A double twist emerged. She admitted the affair was physical but claimed it exposed deeper issues. Yet one message revealed Ryan had been pushing for her to leave, and she'd been wavering. Mark had known partially and stayed silent to protect her from my reaction, adding betrayal by family. Tears flowed freely now, her hands trembling as she touched the papers. I thought I could handle it, keep it separate. The raw pain in her eyes mirrored my own. Grief for the marriage we'd lost, anger at the deception. No screaming matches with thrown objects, just heavy, exhausted honesty mixed with recriminations. By the end, we sat across from each other, drained, the rain slowing to a drizzle. "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly. "Not like this." She nodded, broken. The confrontation didn't bring catharsis immediately, only the stark reality that the life we'd built was fractured beyond easy repair. The confrontation is driven by accumulated emotions. Alex's fear, jealousy, and violated trust propel the evidence presentation, while Sarah's guilt, defensiveness, and underlying sadness trigger initial denial then partial admission. Triggers like the physical evidence and children's indirect suffering accelerate the collapse, turning suppressed feelings into overt dialogue. Jealousy and grief manifest in sharp words, reflecting post-infidelity trauma responses. Sarah's actions, tears, anger, stem from shame mixed with resentment over unmet needs for excitement and validation. The power shift occurs as Alex moves from passive suspicion to active boundary setting, though moral ambiguity from mutual shortcomings complicates pure victim-perpetrator dynamics. Nonverbal cues, trembling hands, drained postures, and environmental elements, rain as pathetic fallacy, heightened tension. The scene shows how emotional flooding leads to both revelation and escalation, with the double twist reframing earlier events, not mere lust, but a symptom of deeper disconnection. This collision of threads, affair, family loyalty via Mark, financial secrecy, creates the inevitable breaking point, where actions finally align with long-suppressed inner truths. In the months that followed, the house echoed with new emptiness even as routines persisted for the kids' sake. Divorce proceedings began, civil on paper, emotionally brutal in mediation rooms with their sterile lighting and uncomfortable chairs. We sold the house eventually, splitting assets fairly, though the college fund revelation added bitterness. Sarah moved closer to her work. I found a smaller place nearby to stay involved with Emily and Jacob. Co-parenting brought its own painful learning curve. Handoffs at neutral spots, forced politeness masking hurt. The kids asked questions. Why can't we all live together? Their innocent eyes forcing honest, age-appropriate answers. Therapy helped me process the post-infidelity stress-like symptoms. Intrusive thoughts, trust issues, waves of anger followed by profound sadness. Sleep returned slowly. Meals tasted better as I rediscovered cooking for myself. A secondary revelation brought closure. Sarah admitted in a final honest conversation that the affair had been a misguided attempt to reclaim a sense of self lost in years of compromise, but it only accelerated what was already fraying. I reflected on my own contributions, emotional unavailability, taking stability for granted. No villains, just flawed humans. Empowerment came gradually. I started running in the early mornings, the cool air clearing my head, joined a support group where stories mirrored mine. Friendships deepened with those who showed up without judgment. The kids adapted, showing resilience that humbled me. Emily excelling in art, Jacob opening up more during our weekends. Life moved on quietly. I dated cautiously years later, boundaries firmer. Trust can break irreparably, but resilience rebuilds something new, perhaps stronger in its realism. Stepping back, this narrative reveals a universal lesson about relationships. Betrayal often stems not from sudden moral failure, but from unaddressed emotional distance and the human tendency to seek external solutions for internal voids. Trust is fragile because it relies on consistent alignment between words, actions, and unspoken needs. When routines dull connection without intentional maintenance, vulnerability to affairs increases. The story underscores that while infidelity devastates, triggering trauma-like responses, identity crises, and family ripple effects, recovery lies in radical honesty, personal accountability, and rebuilding from individual wholeness rather than dependency. Alex's arc from denial and obsessive proof-gathering to empowered reflection illustrates growth through pain. Recognizing cognitive distortions, honoring boundaries, and accepting that some chapters end so others can begin. Sarah's choices highlight how avoidance of difficult conversations breeds secrecy, while the children's role shows how parental secrets burden the next generation. Broader human behavior insight. We all construct self-narratives to justify actions, but reality eventually demands integration. Nearly 20 to 40% of divorces involve infidelity as a factor, yet the true statistic is personal. Each story reminds us that prevention lies in nurturing emotional intimacy daily, and healing requires choosing resilience over bitterness. The marriage ended, but lives continued with harder-won wisdom. Connection requires presence, not just presence.